going to literally, I plan to physically take every figure off of its display, set it up here, and just go over it. Give you a full-on up in here, maybe not. Over there, I think we're skipping some of those, right? It's just like I said, just a quick. Here they all are. Why? We have parts and other parts. And what would be the wine cellar and the garage. War machines, and up top we have Wakanda. Here essentially are the Avengers. On this shelf, with some of the bad guys down there, Thanos and his bunch. And kind of the Fison shelf, Vampirella, Lady Death. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 shelf. The Deadpool shelf. Kind of the, I guess you would say the Infinity War shelf, Doctor Strange. Right down here we have some of the large pieces. Of course, there's the 1/6 scale land speeder. I'm pretty sure it's a 1/6 scale Camaro that I would love to paint. Have painted like my Bumblebee, and that is a pretty close to 1/6 scale car that I want to turn into like the Monaco Tony Stark car. So this is this portion of the room. Then we have the other room here, the office. So up here is the more or less the first Avengers, if you will, and Quicksilver, and where are we at? Here's Mark III Ironmonger, Mark VII Pod, Mark VI at Tony Stark Towers, Mark IV at the Stark Expo, 2 in the garage, and Mark VI War Machine Mark I and Whiplash Mark II at the Expo. So that's a quick rundown of everything. Now let's with Iron Man Mark I. Just go in order. Try to set my camera up here. Mark I 2.0. So they made, which I've seen personally, and then they released this guy maybe a year or two later. I don't know exactly how much time transpired between the two pieces. Piece is pretty awesome. It's very fragile. The pipes and the electrical wires and all that that make it up. I don't want to mess with it. Tony's inside of there. Get this little faceplate up. And he's really, really, really super detailed. It came with this flame effect, big, huge flamethrower effect about yay long, that you could attach to his forearm. And he lights up. The little batteries, if I remember correctly, go inside this device. If I remember correctly, where the batteries go on this. And this is the Iron Man Mark 1. Now, Hot Toys said that they intend to make the first 7 die-cast for fact. So I anticipate this piece to be re-released or announced soon of the Mark 1 being a die-cast. But no, I've not heard anything along that line other than what their intention was originally, which was that at least the first 7 would be die-cast. So that's the Iron Man Mark 1. This might be not such a good idea to bring all these pieces down one at a time. It's pretty time consuming. If you guys are fine with it, I'm fine with it. Nothing else going on. This was, or is, Iron Man Mark II die-cast. Did a really good job with this when it came out. The Mark III die-cast came out before this did. And what I was really hoping for when they did release this piece, that they would make it just like the Armor Unleashed. And they did not. But there's a lot of really neat pieces on this. See how I have it opened as much as possible. My biggest trying to figure out how to say this. What really sucks is how much detail goes into the backs of these figures, which you really don't see unless you were to put a mirror on them in their display case. And so as they are here, you can actually see, for instance, as I'm showing it to you today, the backs of the figures, which never really get seen. Now go get the Mark II Armor Unleashed. So I have this displayed on the gantry re-release. So the first gantry that they came out with, you could either pose it with the garage tiles or with the Stark Expo tiles, which are the white tiles. The second gantry, you could only pose it with the garage tiles. So this is the gantry Mark II, more or less. Same thing. One of them is clean. I mean, the the yellow pieces of the gantry are like new-ish, where this one, it looks like it's just used equipment like you might find in a, if you were to go to like a mechanic's garage and you see the equipment that they use to lift your car up. It's not all bright and shiny and yellow. It's practical. It's used equipment. And so that's what this one looks like, the re-release does, with all the little black pieces on it. This is the Armor Unleashed. It had all these little pieces that could come off, and you could see inside the areas of what would be under the skinning of the suit. Another thing that they did differently in the original Mark II versus the die-cast, I don't know if you can see it real well here. These little fins here, you could actually separate them. They did it on the Mark III die-cast. They didn't do it on the Mark II die-cast, however. They actually molded them into it. Now with the Mark III die-cast, it was a pain in the ass to get all those open, all those little pieces. So I guess I'm kind of glad that they didn't do it with the Mark II, but I'm kind of not glad because I like these little pieces. So there's the Mark II Armor Unleashed and the Mark II die-cast. Let's get the Mark III. Start with this guy. I only have one Mark III. And it's die-cast and this Mark III Stealth. I never picked up a plastic Mark III. I had full intentions of, but the die-cast came out. I was like, what's the point? So actually my Hall of Armor is missing a Mark III. But these are Mark IIIs that I have. I really need to find a Mark III to go in the Hall of Armor. Oh, but how you doing, man? Hello, Robert. Happy Saturday. I just didn't feel like getting up and doing anything. I didn't have anything. And I hope everyone is feeling okay. Yeah, they say the key to the coronavirus, from my understanding, always go to, your all the guidelines that are shared to you. They're readily available on the internet. Go to the CDC or World Health Organization. Is fever. Fever is the key. If you have a fever, that's when you really need to be. From my understanding, if I understand it correctly, fever is the key symptom. Let's see. I'm glad you guys missed me. I'm sorry I wasn't here. It's nice to know that you missed me. So this is a regular Mark III die-cast, and you see I have him posed up to go against the Ironmonger. You've seen him in the other room. This is where he is, as such. And it's really cool the way they did him. You've seen the Mark II die-cast fully opened up, and this guy opens up the same way. And this one, again, same figure as this. I have him just in static museum pose or whatever, is not in an action pose. This was supposed to represent how they would display him in the comics whenever they show him in a stealth mode. They would use the blue colors and this red arc reactor and the red eyes to portray the Iron Man figure going into stealth mode, the Iron Man suit going into stealth mode. And that's what this is supposed to represent. So it's called the Iron Man 3. It's called the Mark III Stealth. what it's called, Mark III Stealth, and it's neat. It's I don't think it was much loved. I don't think they sold many of them. I really don't know. Hot Toys does not divulge that information. They've only told us how many supposed pieces they've made on just a handful of suits. Um, so I have no idea how many of these are there. And I don't know, I don't remember seeing it in many collectors' um, collections. So I consider it a pretty rare piece in that regards. Now there may be 1,000 of them, maybe 10,000 of them. I have no idea. I really don't. But it's just not the classic red and gold, which the collectors want. You know, when they want an Iron Man, they want him to be red and gold, and it's not even close. But I'm a completist, so I pick up all of them. The other Mark III that I did have, which I sold, was the gunmetal, and I sold it when I had experienced some financial difficulty last year after my wife's hospitalization, and I really regretted getting rid of that piece. It's a really beautiful piece. It was just different shades of gray, and it was plastic. It was my only plastic, very um, good price, and I do miss it. I really miss it, believe it or not, out of my collection. So, moving from Mark III, we'll go to the Mark. A lot of Mark IVs. So let me set that one up first while I put these guys away. This is the Mark IV Secret Project, which is, I guess you would say, the brother of the Mark III gunmetal version that was out. This one isn't quite as valuable as the Mark III gunmetal. I'm assuming the Mark III gunmetal is valuable because of its rarity. By the way, this is the This is the base from the Mark VII diecast, and I thought it was perfect for the positioning of the Mark III versus the Ironmonger, because they kind of fought in the street. And so this is what I did. I took the Mark VII plate off of this and put it onto the pod. You'll see that in a few minutes when we get to the Mark VII, and I'll get Mark IVs out of the other room. I hope you guys don't mind me doing this, taking time with all these. These figures are so dusty. So this is the Mark IV in the original gantry. As I said, you can either display it as Stark Expo, or you could flip the pieces over to display it in the garage. Can't do that with the re-release gantry. And you notice these are nice and cleaned up for display at the Stark Expo. The other Mark IVs are pretty sure this is the Shanghai release Mark IV. The red on it is a little different than the other Mark IVs. These have what I call a bluish tint in the red. This one has an orangish tint in the red. Now the Mark IV Neon, which I don't know what the whole purpose of that figure was. Didn't matter, I bought it, I wanted it, and it has been added to the collection. And then finally is the Mark IV diecast. So the neon and this one are the die-cast figures. The other three are plastic figures. And this one we have him posed from his Randy's donut scene. So again, these are all Mark IVs. One thing that I don't think people put together in their mind is the relationship between the Mark IV and the Mark VI. Mark III and Mark IV always confused me. They look the same to me, and wasn't Mark IV in the first movie. No, Mark III was the last one in that movie. Mark IV was in Iron Man 2. Mark III was what he had the final battle with the Ironmonger with. Mark IV starts. Mark IV is in Iron Man 2. Probably the biggest way of referencing between the two, Mark III and the Mark IV, is the thigh piece is upside down on the Mark III. And there's like little spinners on the outside of the arc reactor as well on the Mark III. So on the Mark IV, you notice it's rounded at the bottom, flat at the top. Mark III rounded at the top, flat at the bottom. And there's no spinner like a dial on each side of the arc reactor on the Mark IV. There is on the Mark III. So relationship between the Mark IV and the Mark VI, and it's almost as though when they originally filmed the movie compared to how the movie was assembled to us, it's like as if they decided to rearrange some of the scenes to make a more cohesive film. But one of the things that you'll hear is Killian will say, or not Killian, Hammer, Justin Hammer, I think was his name. He says something about when he brings out his hammer drones, he says something about that's better than cheerleaders. Now remember, Iron Man 2 starts off with the cheerleaders or something to that effect. And all of a sudden, towards the end of the movie, he's making comments about that. And this is supposed to be like days have passed from the moment of the beginning of the movie and the point where he's out here talking about his thing. And who the hell would even remember that there were cheerleaders days after the revealing of the Mark IV in the Expo Center? I think those are probably supposed to be closer together. I think that was supposed to happen kind of later. And I don't know how things went. Maybe they had to change things about it. It was always just weird how that was worded, and it didn't make any real sense, except that they must have had to change the order of the film in order to make it more cohesive or more fluid. Anyhow, the Mark IV in the Hall of Armor had the little LCD hologram, had the hologram in front of it, and it said awaiting upgrade. And he was literally in the process of inventing the new element for the Mark VI suit. And when he finally invented it, and hammer drones are out there attacking everybody, he had to instantly get ready, and literally, you can draw the conclusion that he took the Mark IV, ripped the chest out of it, threw on the new element, and bam, Mark VI, and with the laser pieces on it. And that is my interpretation of what really happened, was that the original Mark VI that we see at the end of Iron Man 2 specifically was 100% just the Mark IV that had been damaged with the new arc reactor thrown in it. I don't believe he took the time, that moment when he just completed the creation of that element and had to go rescue Pepper and everyone at Stark Expo, to have Jarvis manufacture an entire new suit, a six at that point. So that's, in my mind, how that happened. Now, you might say that he had a Mark VI sitting there, no matter what the fact that this said awaiting upgrade on it. It's debatable, but the only difference between the Mark IV and the Mark VI is paint scheme and the arc reactor. So when we have the Mark VI up here next to it, it's exact same pieces, just with some silver thrown in there instead of just the full-on red and gold. So again, we have the Mark IV that was released with the gantry right here, plastic Mark IV. We have the Mark IV Shanghai release that was released with the opening of Disney's Shanghai Hot Toys. and the Mark IV Secret Project. And these are all the plastic ones. And then we have the die-cast Mark IV that I ordered with that other gantry that I had the Mark II on, and then the Mark IV die-cast Neon Tech Iron Man. Let's see. And yeah, that's correct. That base, I've been told that that base was in the Terminator too, originally. The pink panties are any of these. So, for instance, you can see it very slightly affecting on this one. And what actually will turn will be the panties and the hands will. It was in the process of them painting this plastic. There's multiple components here, especially in the die-cast. There's even more components. But there's different types of plastic in these pieces. And for the hands and the pelvis area, it's like a rubbery plastic. And they would paint it with a type of a silver, and then they would hit it with the red after that. And the red just fades out and the silver starts showing through. The fix to that, there's lots of collectors that have made videos on ways of fixing it. And my personal opinion, the best way to do it, which I've not done it to any of these yet, is to not remove the original painting that's on here. Some of them will say to totally strip it off and then repaint it, and I have a problem with that. Personally, my fix is Tamiya color paint TS74. I don't know if you can see that. It's a red chrome clear. So it's a clear coat red that you're spraying back onto that. And that way you're not really changing any of the original paint that's on it. You're just throwing another layer onto it. And it's a clear red that you're painting onto it. TS74 clear red. And so you would remove these pieces from the suit and the hands, and you would just give them a coat of this. And these are attached underneath. They're kind of glued on to the body. In between the thighs here is where they're glued on. So take off the legs. You can peel the panties off, and you can repaint the hands as well. And this TS74 Tamiya clear red is what you'll want to use to do that. My opinion, don't strip the original paint off of it. Just clear it again, which, from my understanding, is the way that was originally done. How's it going, Ruben? Mark IV was the suit where Tony is revealed to Black Widow by Nick Fury. Yep, at Randy's Donuts. Yep, and there he is in his Randy's Donuts pose. I wish that Hot Toys Mark VI had the dent that Thor put in it. It's there. I'll show you that. Are you planning on getting the battle damaged Thanos? I have not made that pull the trigger on that yet. And thank you, Noble. Thank you very much. I just have. I've got. Gosh, I don't even know. Probably 30 figures on order still. So the collection just constantly grows. You would think now, when there's nothing coming out, would be the time that you would start grabbing your filler pieces, the pieces that you don't have, your holy grails, tracking those down, and all that, just so you can have a piece coming in. But holy smokes, I've got so many already on special order, or well, on order, that have money invested into them and deposits that once those start popping, sheesh. I think I've seen one of the figures that was revealed by Sideshow the other day. I'm trying to remember which one it was. So normally it takes about 2 months from the moment that Sideshow shows it that it comes here to the United States to me. So I may be looking at maybe a month or so before anything starts popping in. But I have to have money for all of those. So that's why I'm not buying figures in this interim when there's nothing coming out right now. And it happens this time of year no matter what. Always. Always this time of the year is a slow time of the year. but more so now, I think, because of the coronavirus and people not able to work. So here's the back of the Neon Tech. Give this guy a spin before putting him away. And these die-cast figures, the Mark IV and Mark VI, when you light them up, oh, they are really beautiful. They have blue underneath the chest region that illuminates, and in the arm where all the missiles are. Really, really good looking piece when they do that. And here's the back of the Mark IV Secret Project. Again, you never get to see the backs of these unless you happen to have a mirror on them where they're displayed. So here's the backs. You can see again the little separated metal foils on his back flaps for that. So let's get these guys, put them away. And we'll start moving down the pieces we're going to talk about next. The Mark V. Once I put these guys back where they belong. Two plastic Mark V's, and we have a die cast as well. And we have an exploded suitcase. So I have the racing suit, which is off of a body now. So it's in a drawer. So that would also be part of the Mark V, I would say. Only because it's his racing suit. Each one of these came with one of these, which is how the Mark V is transported about. It was his first true portable armor, if you will. And we see him putting it on in this manner. Kind of explodes out. He bends down, grabs the little handles here, lifts it up, and then stretches it out, and bop-a-bop-a-bop comes together. So the original pieces here on the Mark V plastic, you could pose it either in the new, more or less undamaged version, or you can put it into the battle damaged version, and you just put the different pieces on it there. And it was just a cool looking piece. It was very unique. It didn't look like any of the others. Just as you were saying, you have difficulty picking out between the Mark III and the Mark IV. This piece, there was no question about what it is. And it was red and silver. Some people were calling this, at that point, the Silver Centurion, because we were familiar with that from the comics, but it was never referred to that as that in the movie. If I remember correctly, I customized this helmet, and I did. So the Mark V did not come with a Tony Stark head sculpt in it. And I decided it needed to have a Tony Stark head sculpt. And so I bought extra head sculpts and extra Mark 33 head sculpts to create this. And I had to cut the faceplate off of it, literally dig out the entire insides of this head sculpt, all the plastic and the lighting equipment that was inside of this, to be able to place inside of it the head sculpt from the Mark 33 Silver Centurion. So that is how that is, and it will close up. So I can either display it open or closed, but of course I would never display it closed because I have closed ones, but it just didn't make any sense not to have it be able to open and close for display purposes. But as I was saying, I don't need it to be closed because I have other Mark V's with them closed. So that is this, and he opens up here in the back as well. The little flaps are a little different. It's definitely a unique piece in that the way it's works is different than the others. So I can't figure out how to open these up, but the little back flaps do open up on him. And if I remember correctly, when they did this guy, holy smokes, Hot Toys went all out on this. I even more so seeing this, it makes me wish that they had done a die-cast Mark II Armor Unleashed. The way these little flaps open up down here on the legs is just remarkable. And it's, again, to represent him putting his suit on there at Monaco, where we get to see the reveal of the Mark V. The funny thing is, all these are open and will stay open, except this little guy right here. He's just too loose to stay up. He just always flops down. And I've noticed that on some of the other collectors with this, they also have the same problem of it just not staying up. So somewhere in the design process, they messed that up. You see the little biceps are opened up. The little chest pieces open up, and then the legs open up. It was really, I would say, probably the pinnacle of design on this piece. Probably the most well thought out and planned design of a Iron Man armor suit. This one with all the little pieces that open up. And you could call it an Armor Unleashed because of that, but not really, because you can't see underneath specifically. But seeing this encouraged me to hope that they would do the Mark II Armor Unleashed. I think that they need to redo the Mark II and Mark III diecast because they're shorter than all the new diecast figures that are coming out. I mean, a lot. And I think the scale is just off on them because of that. So they need to be, in my opinion, need to be redone. The Mark III diecast, both the Stealth and the Red and Gold, come with this articulated waist piece on them, so you can put them into, the superhero pose better. If you were posing one into the superhero pose, I would say the Mark III diecast would be the one that you would want to seek out, because it actually has an interchangeable waist section, so you can put it into the superhero landing pose. That was the whole purpose of that waist, was to be able to twist your figure into that pose. So if that's important to you, Mark III would be the one I would recommend getting for that. So Once I leave these guys out, I'll get a Mark 6 down here. This is a die-cast Mark 6. Plastic Mark 6. Original plastic Mark 6. And I say that because the other Mark 6 I'm going to get here in a few moments is the Shanghai release Mark 6. Neon Tech Mark 6 die cast. Mark 6, I think this one was called Movie Promo Edition. This is the Shanghai Mark 6 with the King Arts 1/9 scale gantry from Stark Tower. Now, we'll discuss that in a few minutes as well. Let's get his little shoulder piece back here on. No idea how this came off. Can't get it quickly, I'll just put it on later. I cannot. I'll mess with that later. So, you can see here, he really has suffering of the pink panties. See how bad that is? So essentially any one of these 3, 4, 6, 5 that have this plastic piece here in the hands are going to eventually suffer from it. So this is the Mark 6 I have displayed in the Hall of Armor because he's in perfect condition, more or less. This, for the most part, was the same figure. Came with a lot of accessories to be able to display him battle damaged. Okay, so even this one, which was in more thighs. Perfect. The Shanghai release is perfect condition, so I'll show you that. Show you the backs of these guys. What's neat about these, this little thigh piece here, you could press it in and it would pop out to display the, what would you call them? Stuff falling off. The flares to keep from being pursued by missiles and whatnot, the heat-seeking flares. There's a problem with these as where they won't necessarily stay in all the time. And so they redesigned it with the Mark III diecast so that you would just pop it off and put in a new one. See how that one's out? Right there. And then on the Mark IV diecast, they kind of just ignored it. It wasn't even an option. It was just like it was gone. So, but sometimes you'll see these, they just don't want to close up all the way and stay closed all the time. Also on these guys, these forearm pieces love to just fall off. They just love to fall off. They don't stay on there well. So you want to keep your eye out for those. And then of course you'll end up with loose joints as well. So these are things that just happen to these figures. Sometimes you can tighten up the screws inside to counter the loose joints. And the back flaps also on them are loose and don't want to stay as well. So I don't have these back flaps up. I have them down. They just don't like being up all the time. On the Shanghai re-release, still a plastic piece. Again, we have the orangish tint to the red instead of the blue tint to the red. But it is not battle damaged at all. It's all literally red and gold. So I've thought about putting him in the Hall of Armor and putting this guy here, but he's standing on his own. His joints aren't loose, whereas this guy I just showed you, his joints are so loose, he probably couldn't stand on his own. So he stands on his own here. Now, the reason I chose the 1/9 scale gantry, there was a company that made a 1/6 scale Stark Tower gantry. The reason I chose this one is because, in my opinion, this is 1/6 scale. All right? So we see this in multiple stages in the movie. He first lands on it. And when he lands on it, it is the same size as his Malibu mansion was in the basement there, of the round area that he stood on and even did the superhero landing pose on. Okay? So that is approximately this big around. It really is this big around. The area that he lands on and stands on and in his garage is about this big around. It's not this big like the pieces that Hot Toys gives us to stand on for that. It is this big. This is how big it is that he goes down on. It's about 6 feet in diameter. When he is coming down the steps, it first rotates up into this position, and you notice that it's not over his head because it wasn't at that point over his head. It then explodes into the larger area to go over his head. So this specifically is the moment before it opens up larger to be over his head. And so that is why, in my opinion, even though they call this a 1/9 scale gantry, I believe, from what I've researched, it truthfully is a 1/6 scale gantry. So I have here the Shanghai release Mark IV, or excuse me, Mark VI, that I've displayed in this to represent that moment that he's coming back to Stark Tower in this gantry. And then we have the die cast. And the Mark IV and the Mark VI die cast pieces are There's not many that are more beautiful than these once you have them lit up with the blue lights that just shine underneath the chest and around the arms. It's remarkable. Now, you can see here between these two, they made a lot of changes on them in redesigning it for the die-cast piece. The rockets are different. The missile areas here are different. The way that the flaps open up are different, and it's it's almost like as if even though they studied the figure or the suits originally, they went back and restudied them again and made some changes to them to release the Mark 6. We really see that in the Mark 7. I'll show you that in a moment. The Mark 7 was so much different between the two that I at first thought that they'd lost their mind in the changes that they had made to them. But the way the missiles open up and all sorts of things are just so different in these two, the plastic and the die-cast, because they went back and revisited it. And again, these pieces don't open up, whereas on this one it does. I don't know if you can see this or not, but the little pieces are out. They don't want to retract in all the way. And it's just the nature of the beast of the 3 and 4 and the 6 of the plastic pieces that had this. The Mark 3 diecast, you replaced it, and in the Mark 4 and Mark 6 diecast, they just ignored it. You can't pop it out, you can't exchange it, you can't put a flare version of it out. So that's these pieces, and I will get the Mark 7 out next. Ah, yeah. I was talking about the chest, the Thor. They're here, and also on the diecast. The damages are in the helmet and in the chest. On the diecast piece, they're there too. The Thor dents, they're there from Avengers. They're certainly there. When I first seen it, I was like, "What the hell is this dent? Why is there this dent here? This dent shouldn't be here." And then I was watching Avengers, and I was like, "Ah, the Thor dents." So they're there. The Thor dents are there on the Mark 6, both the battle damaged plastic and in the die cast. Get you teased here with the Mark 7. Once I put these guys away. The sevens. Seven's a pretty popular, iconic piece, I must say. Let's see. I will paint the Mark 6. I'll paint all the plastic pieces. That's why I got the paint. I just haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, they will get painted. So this is a plastic Mark 7 right here. And he sits in the Hall of Armor that I have up there. And this is the die-cast Mark 7 right next to him. And there is a huge difference between these two pieces. Noticeably, the first big difference, besides size, is the paint scheme. This one has a glossy hot rod style finish, and this one is a satin or a matte style finish. And when I first saw this, I was really disappointed and upset over that. I was like, what the hell? Why are they painting him like this? One of y'all pointed out that that's how it truthfully is, and believe it or not, you're absolutely right. That's how it truthfully is. I reviewed both Avengers and Iron Man 3, and in both movies, he is not glossy and shiny like he is here. He is definitely matte or satin finished as such. They, again, just as I was talking about on the Mark 4.6, how they redesigned some of the pieces, they redesigned this too. When I first saw the flaps on this guy, and you can see it on my unboxing video of it, I was really disappointed in how the flaps opened up. I was like, the flaps shouldn't be opening like this. They should be opening like they are here. And they don't. They don't open like this. This is the same way the 3, the 4, and the 6 open up. And this one doesn't open like that. Not at all. And I was really angry and disappointed that they had changed all these ways of the thing, of the figure working. But then as I examined it more and compared it to the movies, this is accurate. And this one is not. So this one they designed along the line of the 3 and the 4 and the way they worked in the 6. And then when they got to this, they continued it on thinking it was working in the same way, and it doesn't. They actually open up in the manner that they do on this die-cast piece here. Also, I like how at the end of Avengers, when he's laying there dead, more or less, and he is shocked back to life, the face mask was ripped off, and there's these little pieces on there, and we have that reflected here, which was not reflected here. So a lot of changes in the die cast. It doesn't lessen the plastic version for me in any manner, and this is what I have displayed in the Hall of Armor. This one I have displayed more or less in where would be a place of honor. But they made a lot of changes between these two pieces, but it doesn't make me not want this one anymore. But if you're only getting one piece, I don't know where I stand on that. You're going to get a good price on this one, the plastic one, and it's great. There's no question about what it is looking at it. This one is a better piece in regards to more screen accurate for that purpose. What I didn't like about this piece was, in order for you to get the pod, you literally had to not have this piece anymore. You have to use this piece to display it as the pod that came with this piece when you bought it. So essentially, all the rest of him is in a box, unable to be displayed if you want to do this as the pod. I'm pleased to get the pod. It's kind of in there's several modes of the pod. It starts off more or less almost like a coffin size or style, and then he starts breaking apart and opening up into this piece, and then even more so as it begins to wrap around Tony on his descent as he had been thrown out of Stark Towers by Loki. And one of the collectors out there, one of you, had shown me where they'd taken a Titan Iron Man 1/6 scale figure or 12-inch figure and had attached these pieces from their Iron Man Mark 7 onto it. And I thought that was a pretty clever idea. And that way he was able to display the pod and his Iron Man Mark 7 after only buying one diecast Mark 7 and putting these pieces on that Titan. And the Titans are relatively inexpensive in comparison to what these guys are, $450. And just snapped all these pieces on. It didn't do any damage whatsoever to these original Hot Toys pieces. And I think he did a really good job. There was many of them that came with the little holographic pieces. And this is one of them. It's a Mark 7 holograph. And I don't remember what it came with, to tell you the truth. I don't remember if it came with the Mark 7 or if it came with one of the others. The other thing that they did with this Mark 7 was the Stealth and the Arctic, or Sub-Zero, I forget what it was actually called. The Stealth one I had no problem with. In Iron Man 3, as he's talking to the kid with the potato gun, they had made reference to chromium reflective plates. And so this was talked about in the movie. So when they came out with it, I was like, okay, cool. This one was not. So people will call these money grabs. And, I can't argue against that. But it is a cool piece. This chest piece is clear. Even it's like a smoky clear plastic. And the micro printing on these two pieces is amazing. This one has like a carbon fiber micro print all over it, and little notes and instructions are written on it here and there, little bitty micro prints. And I really go into that on the unboxing of these pieces. But it was quite a feat when they did this. One thing a lot of people don't know or have forgot about on these Mark 7s, these little guys here flip up. And every one of them stay up except for this one on the outside left leg. It doesn't stay up. It opens up, and every one of them fall down. Doesn't matter whether it's the white one, the black one, or the die-cast red, or the red and gold one, the plastic one. They all fall down. And that's funny that it does that. But there have been collectors out there said they didn't even know that those even opened up. So that is that on the Mark 7s. And I love these, the black and white one, the Stealth, or also called, it was a joint release as well with a company called Chocolate, and they made some that came with an additional base plate that said Chocolate 10th anniversary or whatever. And then on this one, the same thing, and they called this the white chocolate. And again, the only difference between these two pieces was if you bought the chocolate version, it came with the additional faceplate for the base on both of them. It said chocolate on it, and it came with a, if I remember correctly, a T-shirt with that as well. But other than that, the figures are identical, no question whatsoever, about whether there's any difference between the chocolate and the white chocolate and the Sub-Zero, or the chocolate and the Stealth. Same figure, exactly. I didn't put much thought on this. I don't know how the heck I'm going to get these figures off of this very top shelf. That's going to be a project. Mark 8 has never been made by Hot Toys, and it needs to be. Why? Because truthfully, that is the armor that Pepper uses to destroy Killian. Mark 8. When Tony no longer has his microphone in his ear to communicate with Jarvis, and the last command was to seek out the extremist signatures and terminate with extreme prejudice. And Pepper was infected with the extremists and had become one. And so she destroys the Mark 8 and uses it to finish blowing up Killian. What Hot Toys gives us is the Mark 9. And the only way that you could buy this figure was if you bought the Pepper Potts that it came with. And I had no problem with that. You could have bought Pepper Potts separately without the Mark 9, but you could not have bought a Mark 9 without Pepper Potts. And I'd like to see a new Pepper Potts. This one was an okay likeness. This is the Pepper Potts that it came with. But I want a new one. I want an in-game Pepper Potts. Or an Infinity War Pepper Potts. I want an updated Pepper Potts. I have her holding one of the helmets. You always get all these little extra pieces with the purchase of your Hot Toys figures, and I don't remember where all of them even go to anymore. I literally have to reference different videos and whatnot to find out which one belongs where. But I've got her holding that. This is the Mark 9, so there's no Mark 8, but this is the one that Hot Toys tried to convince us was the armor that she used to destroy Killian. Now, the reason that you could easily get confused over that is it gets to the point where from 8 to 30, I guess 32, there's a lot of Mark 7 in them. I mean, a lot. And the Mark 8 and the Mark 9 have the same torso chest area as the Mark 7. And the same thighs. The Mark 8, though, has the lower leg region, the shin and calf region of the Mark 33 Silver Centurion. And in examining the Iron Man 3 movie, as this armor is speeding to her to kill her, more or less, you can see just for a brief second this region of the suit on the Mark 8, on the one that she uses to kill Killian, and it's for fact the Silver Centurion, not this piece, which is off of the Mark 17 Heartbreaker. So, this is the Mark 9. The one that she uses to kill Killian is the Mark 8. And for the most part, the only difference is the lower leg region down there. So, this is the Mark 9. And it's satin finish. And I like that because of the satin finish. It was different at the time. There was no other that came with that. Another thing that I had done here, if you notice, was I had also made a Tony Stark head sculpt for it. Same process I had done the others, where I took another Mark 9 helmet, took a Mark 33 helmet, took the head sculpt out of the Mark 33 helmet, totally cut out all the insides, and removed the faceplate so I could put it in here. And again, just as I had showed you on the other, this can be closed up and displayed without seeing the Tony Stark inside of it. But again, I don't see the point of having him closed when I've built this specifically to show Tony Stark inside of it. We never seen Tony inside of the suit, but you would assume, though, that all of the suits he wore at one time or another. So that was kind of my idea behind that. And I literally intended to build a head sculpt for every single suit, and I made many of them, many different ones. But then the money became an issue because you're spending, between 60 and 80 bucks on a duplicate head sculpt for the suit. So I had to buy another Mark 9 head sculpt, and then another 60 to 80 dollars for a Mark 33 head sculpt. So you're at 120 to 150 dollars right off the bat just in equipment to do that, and then the time involved to literally drill out all of this and make it fit in here perfectly, and to take the time to specifically take this. These masks are not designed to come off. They're not designed to come off of here. They literally have to be cut off of this to be able to do that. So it's a lot of work. I mean, hours, 40 hours maybe, easily, to do that. And I've had collectors contact me and say, hey, will you do this for me or whatever else? And when I tell them what's involved in it, they have no interest in it anymore. I don't know. I guess they figure 20 bucks is what it should be worth, but you can't even buy the head sculpt, a replacement head sculpt for that, and then all the time to drill it all out is really, really a lot of work. So I've tried to sell a couple of them, and nobody is willing to pay anything for that. And I guess, until you try it yourself and realize what all is involved, you really don't understand the value of it. So they are very expensive to make, and definitely one of a kind. You're not going to find any other one like this. I can guarantee that. So on the ones that I've done head sculpts on, they're truly unique, truly one-off. But from 8 through, like I said, I think 34, you'll start seeing a lot of Mark 7 integrations into them, the chest and the legs and whatever else. Another unique thing about this is the Mark 9 and the Mark 20 are the same, only backwards. Okay? So what is backwards on it is the pelvis. So the Mark 9 has Mark 7 torso and Mark 17 legs with the Mark 17 pelvis. The Mark 20, Mark 7 head, torso, Mark 17 legs with the Mark 17 or Mark 7 torso. And so the only difference between them, besides paint scheme, is the torso, the pelvis region on them, between the Mark 9 and the Mark 20. And I'll show you the Mark 20 as we get to that. So there's the Mark 9. Next one, the Hot Toys is released in the lineup is the Mark 15. And this is the second release of the Mark 15 retro armor version. This is the original Mark 15. I can get him off of there. This top shelf, I have them displayed in order of how they were presented to us in the movie. My goodness, look at the dust on him. Holy smokes. He hasn't been touched in years up there on the top shelf. Had the roof redone. The roof originally was pitch and gravel. Pretty hot tar or hot pitch or something on the roof, and then they spread gravel out on it. That's how they did things back in the day. And constantly that pitch and gravel will seep through the roof. And so all these little dust that you see on these figures are from that. I had the roof replaced like a year ago, and the ceiling still has these little pieces. They're still falling from all those 70, 80 years, whatever it's been, of that falling out. So eventually, I imagine, in the next 10 years, they'll stop falling, I hope. This is the Mark 15 as he was presented to us, and this was the red and gold retro version. And that's because some people just don't dig the non-red and gold pieces. My goodness. Yeah, dusty and filthy he is. Holy smokes, I'm embarrassed about this. So, they did not come with the flame effects. Some of y'all say that you don't like the flame effects. I like the flame effects. I think it looks cool. My goodness. What I've done is I've bought many of these flame effect pieces and have attached them to specifically those on that top shelf to represent as we see them lined up as they're presented to us in Iron Man 3. And the way I do that is I glue it on here. Now, one thing I'm not going to do when I modify a piece in this way is I'm not going to modify it without still having the original. So what did I do? I bought feet and hands specifically so I could glue these on here, and I still own the feet and hands, original feet and hands that came with this piece. This Mark 15 though is really neat in its design. It was supposed to be like a stealth fighter with all the little jagged edges on it and such. It was supposed to be like a jet plane. This F-117 stealth fighter is the effect that they were going for on this. One of the things that they never explained to us at all, period, ever, is this piece. And it's an enigma. It's a crying shame that we never got an explanation to this piece. I love the chrome on it, right? Looks really cool. But what we don't know is why the different forearm, right? So this forearm over here has this appearance to it with a standard-ish hand, if you will. So nothing real different about that. There is some, beefiness in the forearm, but it doesn't look necessarily too different. However, the left hand is a whole nother ball of wax. It almost has like the Thanos spread open type pieces on it, and the forearm is beefier and is different. And there's no explanation at all that I've ever seen that tells why the left arm is different than the right. Nothing at all. It's just a unique piece, and they did it on the original version of it and on the retro styled version on it. And there's no explanation. There's nothing that tells us why that is what it is. And you can see here maybe how the toe bends all the way down. It just makes this really nice clean line, and they did a great job with that in the design of this to make it look like the stealth fighter jet, including the little wings here on the back of it with the intakes for like the jet intake would be. Again, here's the back of the suit that we never get to see. So the angularness of it, which was the reason, again, that we're told that the F-117 stealth fighter is designed the way that it is it reduces radar images by not bouncing them right back to where they originate from to position the vehicle. And that's why this guy is the way that he is. And you can almost fold him up so that all these little pieces will, blend together into almost a single solitary, smooth piece. And there were concept art images where they had shown that, of this being just connected together into like one smooth, streamlined, supersonic style suit. And you can almost see that, or envision that that is what this would become. So that's the Mark 15. The next suit we have, Hot Toys has made for us, is the Mark 20 Python. Again, this is another suit that people incorrectly identify in Iron Man Mark III. In Iron Man 3, they point out a suit that's lining up, and it's not actually this Mark 20 Python that's lining up, but the Mark 21 Midas is the one that's actually being lined up at that moment. It's real difficult to discern these pieces, especially when they have so many similarities to them. But people say that this is the piece that they're showing there, and it's not. Matter of fact, I've not seen this piece in the movie, to tell you the truth. I don't know where it specifically would be. Obviously, at the end of Iron Man 3, when they all line up at Roxxon there. But it's not actually one that I've seen specifically screened. Now, you could say all of them are when you see all of them wrapped around. But this specific one, I've not been able to specifically point out. If you point to the scene where they're all lining up with the blue Centurion, the blue steel showing up, it's not the Mark 20, it's the Mark 7. And if you look at the legs, you'll see that. The Mark 20 has the Mark 17 legs, the Mark 21 has Mark 7 legs, and you'll see as he lines up, it is the Mark 21 because of the legs that the Mark 21 has. So when the blue steel shows up, it is not this Mark 20 Python, it's actually the Mark 21 Midas. But again, just as I was talking about the difference between this one and the Mark 9 is the pelvis. Here we are back to the Mark 7 pelvis, whereas on the Mark 9, it is the Mark 17 pelvis. So you have the little flares there on that. Other than that, these two are the same suit, just different paint schemes. And here's the back of them. Because again, we never get to see the backs. We always see the fronts or the sides. Never see the back. This was one of my first pieces that I had bought. So I challenge you to view these movie scenes that I'm telling you about, and you'll see that what I'm referring to is the truth and absolutely correct. So the Mark 20 was made, I think, by accident. I'm glad that they did. We probably would never have gotten it otherwise, but it just wasn't a screen scene armor at all that I've been able to find. Now comes one of my favorite pieces. I'll hit you with the very first one, which is really the second one, but my favorite, Mark 21 Midas Chrome version. And up here is the Mark 21 Midas original version. Sitting in his place of reveal up there at the end of Iron Man 3. Literally is a Mark 7. No difference whatsoever. Mark 21 Midas and the Mark 7. So, what I would hope that Hot Toys does is, my opinion, the reason we haven't seen any of the Hall of Armor suits come out lately, the House Party Protocol or original Iron Legion, whatever you want to refer to them is, because they stopped making them as they were concentrating on the die-cast. And so many of those from, as I said, 8 to 34 for the most part, have so many of the Mark 7 elements in them, I assume they probably were just going to wait until they had that Mark 7 die-cast come out before continuing on with those suits, like for instance the Mark 8. Because of the size difference that was created and justified in the re-release of these pieces in die-cast, the plastic ones as well would be different sizes of 8 to 34 or whatever it is. So, one of the things that I've said that they quit making them because they're waiting on the die-cast. If they re-release this Mark 21 Chrome, or Mark 21 Midas, if they re-release it, and I don't care which way they go with it, I would hope it would be the Chrome because it looks so much better, then I'm going to say it's on. I'm going to say it's full on that we're going to get the rest of the House Party Protocol in die-cast. Or at least the pieces that we haven't gotten yet. Or at least the pieces that require the Mark 7 in them. Because simply, all they do is just paint it gold. Mold it, paint it gold, done. Because this is the Mark 7, no difference whatsoever. And again, in order to be able to get the flame pieces on here, I bought the hands and the feet, glued the flame pieces onto it, and there you have it. So, in a sense, this truthfully is a Mark 7 suit. And I hope that we get the die-cast. And of course, I'll drop $400 on it, whatever it is they want to sell it for. Don't give a damn. I love it. And especially the chrome. If they do a chrome version of it again, holy smokes. When this came out, if I remember correctly, again, it was also part of the Shanghai Disney announcement that they did this chrome on. And when I seen this, I knew it was a 100% go, no matter. I mean, this looks great. Many shades of gold are here. I don't even know how many different shades of gold. Maybe 4. Just a guess, just looking at it. I don't know exactly how many shades of gold are here, but it looks good with all the different shades of gold. And again, just as I was saying, this little piece just does not stay open. Open, all the others will, but this one always ends up getting closed. But when they did this, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I don't remember what I paid for this. I could not buy it from Shanghai Disney. I had to buy it from a collector out there. So needless to say, I paid markup on it. And it came to me, and I'm very pleased to have it. And at the time, it was probably one of the most expensive figures that I'd ever bought. That obviously has been blown right out the window because they're much more expensive now. But look at the chrome on this guy. Yes. Again, multiple shades of gold. And all the chrome on him is just... he just leaves me speechless. How shiny he is. And in my opinion, we get this from the original Iron Man movie when he test flies the Mark II, realizes that it ices up, and he decides the way that he needs to have it de-iced is with the gold chromium, I think is what he says. I don't remember exactly. And Jarvis shows it to him, and I think somebody says, I don't remember whether it was Jarvis or Tony, something about it's a bit ostentatious, don't you think? I think it was Tony that said that. And then I think Jarvis says, oh no, not you, sir. You would never go for that look. Kind of a slam at how Tony likes to be out there. He likes to be the center of attention. And he says, throw a little hot rod red on it and call it done. So there have been collectors who have had their Mark IIIs painted in this manner, and they look really cool. But I think that's kind of where the idea for this one came about. As Iron Man 3 creators and producers were making the movies, how are you going to go from Mark 8 to Mark 42 all in one movie? They made a handful of very unique suits, but then the other ones they just started slapping pieces together, just to make a suit. Bam, throw all those pieces on there. Bam, just throw all those pieces on there, and it makes for a good story. And there's an explanation behind them as to how they are and what their specific purpose was. But there just wasn't that much creativity on them. And this one specifically, the creativity level was painted gold. That was it. But it doesn't matter. It's an amazing piece, and I love the chrome on it. And it's just, it's one of my absolute all-time favorite pieces. It really is. The chrome specifically. The Midas is fine. It's a Mark 7. It's just another painted Mark 7 to me, just like the chocolate, the stealth, or the white chocolate, the subarctic or sub-zero, whatever it's called. It's neat and it's nice to have it. It's just a version of the Mark 7, but this is off the shelf. It's amazing. I really enjoyed this. One of my absolute all-time favorite pieces. Mark 21 Midas, chrome version. The next piece is one of the first die-cast pieces. Mark 22 Hot Rod. There was a scene that was supposed to be in Iron Man 3, where Tony gives him his suit. And it is essentially this suit here. The Iron Patriot, or War Machine Mark II, is this suit. And it even has the star on it from that. And you can download a comic that was made to go with the movies of Tony presenting this to Rhodey as the War Machine Mark II, and later on the Iron Patriot. And so that tells you in the process of things of where he designed his suit for Rhodey was at number 22. This is the hot rod. And again, just as the 21, throw a little hot rod red on it, call it done. Mark 21, the gold of that. This one actually has the hot rod red with flames on it. And there were people that had taken the War Machine Mark II and painted it in this manner because it came out before this one did. But it literally is the exact same suit. The difference being that this did not come with the gun on the back that the War Machines do, but it does have the slots. You can put a gun on there if you wanted to, but it just wasn't Tony's thing. And I think Tony even makes a comment about the gun on it. I don't remember, to tell you the truth, from the movie, if he does or not. But it comes with a saluting hand that the Iron Patriots and War Machines come with, because Rhodes is in the military and the hand salute is there. But this is a die-cast, one of the first die-cast pieces that they made. And he's beefy and he's bulky and he's cool. And it is the Mark 22 Hot Rod. And so essentially there really are 4 suits made from this. This piece, obviously, the War Machine Mark II, the War Machine Mark II New Avenger, and the Iron Patriot. All the exact same suit, identically cast, just painted differently, each one of them. And so this is the Mark 22 Hot Rod from Iron Man 3. Again, we do see this in the movie. It's a screen scene suit, and that's what they have here are screen scene suits, which is again about the Mark 8. Why we don't have a Mark 8 is definitely a screen scene suit and a very pivotal suit in the movie, and they confused it with the Mark 9. So they really need to make a Mark 8 if they're making the screen scene suits. This one is very screen scene. Next one, Mark 23 Shades. It's another one that we see in the lineup of them being presented to us. However, instead of displaying him up there where he would be, I've displayed him down here. Because I like this base with this. So this is the base that came with the Iron Man Mark 1. Stark Industries missiles and ammo casings and pieces there. And this is the Mark 23 Shades in the digital camo. Now, I was never a fan of the digital camo for our United States military. I thought it was stupid. When I seen the movie, the Discovery Channel or Military Channel or see a 60 Minutes episode or whatever it was where they were showing the development of this digital ammo way back in the day, I thought that was the most ridiculous thing in the first place. They sold it to the military spent billions of dollars on it, and I just feel that they got the wool pulled over their eyes. But we wore it for many years. There were times when, from my understanding, the soldiers enjoyed it, but they've transitioned away from it. Needless to say, this is a representation of that, the Mark 23 Shades. And it's really cool armor. It's the exact same armor as the Mark 40, which came out first. And then this one was released. It is screen seen as we see it assembling with them as they're being revealed to us at the end of Iron Man 3. It's one of the ones that flies up just for a second. Another reason I also don't have them up there is because there's two different scenes of that, and as I'm going through the movie, watching them assemble, show up, it's been placed in two different places at the same time, which is wrong. It can't be. I don't remember where it's landing up in between anymore. I think it was between the blue steel and the Mark 40. I don't remember. And as I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait a minute, that's wrong. It can't be here because it's also over here with the Mark 24 tank. And it just doesn't, it's not adding up right. It's just wrong. So I have him here for those two reasons. One, because where he's revealed in the movie, it doesn't add up to where he could have been as well. He just looks good standing on this base. And I'm not using this base because my Mark 1 is in the Hall of Armor. So he looks good here. I mean, this is where I would expect this suit to be, out there in the front line being used. And it's the digital camo, and it looks really cool. And again, because the Mark 40 came out first, and this is exactly the same suit as the Mark 40, there were people that were having this digital paint applied to the Mark 40. A friend of mine worked for a crossbow manufacturer, and I've seen them how they apply the camo to the crossbows, and it looks really cool. It's like a dipping process, and I assume that's how they were doing it to the Mark 40. It was a dipping of these pieces to apply this on here. I don't know, but there are people who have customized their Mark 40 to resemble this Mark 23. Now the Mark 40 comes with a head sculpt. The Mark 23 does not. This was another one that I was intending at one point to make into a head sculpt, and then as I ended it, I didn't continue on with that. So it would have been cool if this little shield would slide open and it doesn't. And again, that was another thing I've often thought about customizing, was making the shield slide open and close. I never did. It just isn't important to do that in that regards. But this is the suit, and it's pretty cool. It's the Mark 23, and I dig it because of the digital camo. It's just very unique. And again, it's the same thing as the Mark 40 shotgun. Identical suits, just different paint scheme. And this is plastic. So other than the Marks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which are die cast, the Mark 22 Hot Rod is the only other die cast figures, armors through 41. So all these others will not be die cast. The Mark 21 was not die cast. The Mark 20 is not die cast. The Mark 15, the Mark 9, none of those are die cast. The 24 is not die cast, etc. We get to the Mark 42 will be the next die cast one, and following that, 43 is die cast. The 44 Hulkbuster is not die cast. 45, 46, 47 are die cast. The Hulkbuster 2 is not die cast, and then the 50 and 85 are die cast. So that will be your differences in that. So no, this is not a die cast figure. It's a question that is asked a lot about these other pieces. Are they die casting or not? And I would like to see them be made die cast. Gosh dang it. And I really hope that Hot Toys does move forward with that and re-releases these pieces in die cast, and or continues making the rest of the Hall of Armor. So I guess, in all truthfulness, is this important to be re-released as a die cast? I suppose if you guys are wanting to collect it, yeah. If you guys are wanting this for your collection, I don't know how many of you are still into all this, truthfully. It's like, I think it was the 90s, Spider-Man kind of fell out of favor. Spider-Man's always been Marvel's, like their number one guy, their Superman, if you will. But it seemed like in the 90s, nobody was digging Spider-Man anymore. I was. Spider-Man's always been my guy. But the X-Men just really gained popularity, Wolverine specifically. And it seemed that nobody really gave a damn about a Spider-Man as much as they did the X-Men and Wolverine. And I think that same thing is happening here currently with the demise of Tony Stark, Iron Man, is that you guys have just lost interest and touch with the Iron Man figures. I don't know how many of you truthfully are out there thinking, yeah, I want the rest of them. I think a lot of you maybe have switched off from that. And I like to hear that, because I want the rest of them. I want them all. So that may be the only one ever. It'd be nice if they got the others, but it's hard to say. So next in line is the Mark 24 tank. And this is a Mark 17 Heartbreaker. 100%. It is the Mark 17 Heartbreaker. And how in the world did I skip him? 15, 20, went 15 to 20. And I totally skipped the Heartbreaker. So let's get the Heartbreaker down here, because he's the only one that I haven't touched on in the order. So we kind of went out of order. So let me get my Heartbreaker down here. The only difference in them is paint scheme, and when you got the tank, it came with some little bitty pieces, which I've calculated before their actual size, and I don't remember what they are. I think I discussed it in the video of it. There was two figures that they came out with the smaller ones on, and this was one of them, Mark 24 tank, and he came with this huge fire blast or energy blast coming out of the arc reactor here in his chest, which I've put onto the Mark 17, which reminded me that I hadn't shown it to you. So let me get that down right now. And here is one of the little guys that came with. This one is the Mark 9. So I have my Mark 9 in the Hall of Armor because I have a Mark 9 in the presentation area. And he hangs out right here behind Mark 17. So the Mark 17 was the first one that we see in the lineup. And I've put the Mark 24's energy blast there. But this is the first one that pops up to us as they all assemble at Roxxon there in Iron Man 3. But this is the Mark 17, exact same piece, Mark 24, red and gold, brown and silver and gold. And this is a screen scene armor as well. That's why we have it. Because again, it seems that it's the screen scene ones that they've released. And the Mark 24 tank is a screen scene armor, 100%. And again, these pieces I added onto it didn't come with this. Neither did the Mark 24 tank. Mark 24 tank did come with this. And then I've bought these and bought extra feet and hands to be able to glue them onto it. So all of my armors up here have the flames that I've glued onto them. There was only 2, maybe 3 suits that actually came with flames. The Mark 41 prehensile suit came with flames, and I think the Mark 46 came with flames, and maybe the 47. I don't remember now. But there's just a lot of you that don't like the flames. I love the flames. I think they look great. God, these are so dusty. I'm so embarrassed over this. But I don't have them in display cases that are surrounded to keep them out. You know, he is in a display case, so there's not much dust on him at all. This guy's right up there at the ceiling, collecting everything that just comes down right through the cracks in the ceiling. So from the roof. But this is the 17 and the 24 tank. What comes after 24? $25. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep you guys here. I think what I'll do at the top of the hour, I'll just cut it off. Let's just put 2 hours. I'm driving you all insane going through each and every one of these. And I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, but I can imagine you probably had enough. So I think I'm going to stop it at the top of the hour here. This is 25. Striker. Another name for him has been Thumper. And it is a unique armor. Not that it's the only one like it, because its brother, the 26, is the same armor, just painted green, and it's called Gamma. And these are really cool because they're unique. We have these very interesting feet on them that Tony almost would be walking around on his tiptoes inside this suit. He is taller than the other suits, and as you can see, this comes off and you can display him without these on here. There are people who display them without this, and as you can notice, this is extended and that is retracted, and it can be ejected. Let's see, I don't remember what you press to get it to pop out. Someplace on here is an ejection button, which makes it pop out. There it is. In the very end here, you press that and pops out. It's supposed to be a construction style suit, and that would be like the jackhammers, busting up stuff. And so that's why it can be in or out. And this one was supposed to be, I guess, for radiation was the purpose of it. The green construction suit compared to this one. But they were construction suits. And like I said, you can take these off if you wish to display them without that on there. And again, this was another suit that I was going to do the helmet on, and I never got around to it to do that, to put a Tony Stark inside of it. But that was my intention as well on this. So with 25 and 26, that brings us to the top of the hour, and about 2 hours that I've had you guys with me this morning, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and I'm glad to have spent this time with you. I mean, I don't know how many suits we went through, or how many pieces of my collection. There certainly wasn't anywhere close to 200. So what I guess I'll do is next week I'll just continue on. We'll start with the 27 and go from there. I hope this doesn't bore you guys too much. I hope you enjoy this. And it's a lot more work is involved showing them to you like this than just spanning through and letting you see them. And hopefully you appreciate that and you enjoy being able to see the backs to the suits that you don't get to see any other time, or even close-ups again of these pieces that have been in my collection and only talked about when they first entered into the collection. So I'm going to cut you guys this week as we continue on, and I hope you are well. Please stay human and continue to love everyone else. I hope we get through this coronavirus quickly so we can hug and touch and kiss each other and maintain that human contact. We need that. There have been studies where they have raised babies without contact of others, and they literally they lose their minds. We need that. We need to be able to touch. We need to be able to hug. We need to have contact with each other. So hopefully we can get through this coronavirus again, and we can stop this social distancing of 6 feet or 3 feet or 2 feet or whatever it is that is a recommendation to keep away from each other, and we can survive this because we need it. We need each other. We need to be human. We need to maintain human contact. And so I haven't been paying attention much to the chat. Again, I was trying to get through this, and it's amazing how much time passed going through these. And I appreciate all the time. And I'm so happy to have you guys with me. So thank you very much for tuning in this morning. My wife is doing well. She's in great spirits. And she's a high risk factor. You know, they talk about different people are higher risk than others because of her respiratory problems after her cardiac arrest in August. She is extremely high risk for catching the coronavirus. So we're working really hard to keep her away from all of that. The healthcare workers that come into the house are fully masked and are mindful of her condition as they come in here to take care of her. And I am well. I've already worked at home, so it wasn't much of a change. My life pretty much hasn't changed much at all, except now when I go out, I put the gloves on and before I touch anything, and I keep social distancing away. And I really look forward to the point where this coronavirus is past us and we can get back to some type of normalcy. And I pray that we do get back to normal, where I can shake your hand if I want without it being, you know, harmful or deadly to you. So, thanks very much for tuning in. You know, let your friends and family know where they can go if they're ever interested in learning about these figures or they want to see an awesome collection. Share with everybody. Subscribe if you haven't already. I believe every one of you are subscribers. I can't imagine you guys not subscribing to me. You know, you can find me here every Saturday. I have a Patreon if you feel you wish to assist the channel. There's nothing I can give you. I mean, I'm not getting paid by Sideshow or Hot Toys or whatever to do this. Big Bad Toy Store is where I buy my figures, and I would encourage every one of you to check out Big Bad Toy Store for that purpose, because you don't have to pay for the figure until it arrives there. Whereas other places, you have to pay for it when you order it, or even put a deposit down. Big Bad Toy Store does require a deposit on figures over, I think it's $250 or something to that effect, or $300. There is a point where they start charging deposits, but you can rack up your Big Bad Toy Store edits orders and just have like 30 of them, not have to give them a single penny until it arrives in their store. And then they only have $4 shipping. Whenever I order from other places, I'm paying $20, $30 in shipping. It's insane. So it's really the very inexpensive way to go. On the figures that don't come from Big Bad Toy Store, I try to buy them from suppliers out of New York and Hong Kong. And Big Bad Toy Store doesn't sell third-party pieces that aren't officially licensed. So you have to go elsewhere for those. So I've bought a lot of stuff from 1/6 Kit, 1/6 Outfitter, Toys Wonderland, etc. And sometimes they're only available by Sideshow. And then, of course, on the Grail pieces, the pieces that are out, like these, if you want to try to get these, you're going to have to go to eBay or through a Facebook group or something to that effect to track them down. You're not going to be getting them brand new. Some of you think that Hot Toys has re-released the Mark 47 because they care about you. And it's a nice thought to think that they do. I'm telling you right now, they didn't re-release that Mark 47 because they give two shits about you. They don't. They appreciate your dollar, but they don't care that you are having to pay $800 for a figure that is no longer available. You got to pay whatever the figure is worth. If somebody has it and no one else is selling it, whatever they're selling it for is what you're going to have to pay for it if you want it. If you don't want to pay that, they keep it and you don't have it. Simple as that. Sometimes I see figures sell for as cheap as $50. Hot Toys Electro figure from Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think there was a movie he was in. At one point, they were selling for $50, brand spanking new. And originally, I think it sold for $200 and something, $220 or something like that. So if you bought it when it was first came out, you spent $220. If you didn't buy it for a year or two after he was out, you're able to get him for $50. So it comes and goes. And that's how it works. So don't get angry for someone trying to sell their Electro for $220. That's what they paid for it when it was selling at one point for $50. So, oh man, the Mandalorian figure looks amazing. I love Star Wars. Kind of angry over the last 7, 8, and 9 movies that they made. Didn't much care for how they did it. But no, I'm not ordering the Mandalorian. I I would. I mean, I would get all the Star Wars figures, all of them. I would buy. I mean, all of them. The first, the Rogue One characters, I would get them all. Just like DC, I would buy all of those. Predator, I would buy every one of those. You know, those are franchises that I would really enjoy owning those pieces too. Star Trek, but when you're spending, gosh, $300 on a piece, you know, how can you? And on top of that, you see the size that each one takes up. But no, I would love to have all of the Boba Fett style Mandalorian characters. Man, how many of them are there? 10 or so now, I think, of Boba Fett style or inspired or similar pieces with that. And then you got the bounty hunters, you know, to add on to that collection. And you know, it was so easy to just be consumed by that and go in that direction, for real. I mean, I would love to have all the Mandalorians, all the Boba Fett's, the Jango Fett's, whatever. The bounty hunters then would be the next one to go on, which is going to spew into the droids, and then you have the stormtroopers and the First Order troopers and the clone troopers and oh my god. I mean, I could have 200 or 300 pieces of just of all Star Wars easily, easily. Same thing with the Predator. You know, it's another one of those that kind of fallen to the side. They're no longer a loved piece where people just aren't falling tripping over themselves to get Predator pieces anymore. But I love Predator. I love the movie. I love the Alien versus Predator. I love all those Predators, and the Predator pieces are amazing. And it's another one of those pieces that I would love to be able to collect. Just don't have the money and the place to put them at. Star Trek. Oh my God, Star Trek. It's been so much of a major part of my life that I would love to be able to represent those. I love my Jean-Luc Picard that I got. Thank you very much to the collector that shared that piece with me. It was a wonderful gift. And I just don't have the money and the space to put them in. Oh man, that Mandalorian looks so amazing. Great looking piece. Really is a good looking piece. So, thank you very much again for stopping in, and I will see you all next week. I'm going to cut this out, get you guys out of here. You've been with me for 2 hours, and I love you all. And stay safe, and don't forget to love everybody else. You keep in touch. We'll see y'all. See y'all next week. Thank you.